Can everybody hear me? Good evening, ladies and gentlemen.
Oh, wait a minute. Wait. I have to get seated and start the timer.
Oh, I get extra time.
Okay, ready?
Good evening, everyone. Those who don't know me, my name is Sheila Alou. I've been in the office as an assistant state attorney for over 11 years. In 2013, I retired after a decade of service from the Sunrise City Commission, where I oversaw a $365 million budget, 1,500 employees, and over 92,000 constituents. My experience has prepared me like no other candidate for this position. I know exactly what needs to be done to bring this office forward and to bring the highest level of fairness and justice to the people of Broward County, while at the same time building a successful office that pays our lawyers and our staff the pay that they deserve to be paid. As your state attorney, my focus is going to be on prosecuting violent criminals. I'm going to expand the resources that we need to prosecute people who violate our children, and especially in our sexual battery unit and our homicide unit. We're going to divert as many people as possible to cut down on this mass incarceration that's been going on not just in Broward County, but throughout this country. I have the tenacity, the integrity to move this office forward, and I appreciate your vote and join me in making the Broward State Attorney's Office the best office it could possibly be. Thank you so much for being here tonight.
Can everyone see the timer? Okay, great.
I saw it.
Okay. Just want to make sure.
Good evening. My name is Joe Kimmock. I'm a criminal defense lawyer with Regional Conflict Counsel. I'm also a dad, I'm a husband, I'm a former teacher, I'm a former prosecutor, and I'm currently the president of the Broward Association of Criminal Defense Lawyers. I was the first person in this race, and I'm running specifically to dismantle mass incarceration and build a criminal justice system that we can all be proud of. We need to end cash bail. No one should sit in jail because of the amount of money that's in their pocketbook. We need to end the war on drugs. For decades, we have seen a racist system incarcerate entire generations of black and brown men in this community. I believe that the death penalty has no place in civilized society, and I believe that we need to end mandatory minimum sentences. I love Broward County. I love raising my family here, and I think that my family and your family should feel safe. And we need a new criminal justice system to do that. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Jim Lewis, and I too am a criminal defense attorney here in Fort Lauderdale. And the reason that I'm running for this position is to try to get back at all of you assistant state attorneys that have been beating me up for the last couple of years, because I want to be your boss now. Many of you don't remember when I was a young prosecutor. I was a prosecutor for 12 years in Orlando, and a statewide prosecutor. And some of the old guys like Fred the Dad and some of those old folks will tell you that I was a pretty tough son of a gun. But most of you know me as a criminal defense attorney now. But you know, I've learned over the years that not everybody that's arrested is a bad guy. And jail isn't the answer for everything. Sometimes jail is the answer. And if the crime is bad enough, and if it's necessary, Jim Lewis will put your ass in jail, let me assure you. But I appreciate everybody coming out tonight and giving us an opportunity. I've earned this gray hair, and not just from ex-wives. I can tell you it's from trying probably 500 cases, all right? And over 30 murder trials. And I think that's what separates me from a lot of these folks, is the gray hair and the experience. Thank you.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Justin McCormack. I serve the good people of the state of Florida as an assistant state attorney. I currently serve in the Special Prosecutions and Public Corruption Unit, where I prosecute police misconduct, dishonest lawyers. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Dishonest lawyers, dirty politicians, and anyone else who's broken the public trust. Before serving in the Public Corruption Unit, I served in the 1020 Life Unit, where I prosecuted strictly shooting cases, aggravated battery with a firearm, and attempted murder. I started at the bottom of the state attorney's office and worked my way up through the special units. Prior to that, I served as an assistant district attorney in Pittsburgh, where I also started at the bottom of that office and rose my way up to handling violent crime. Prior to serving the public, I represented injured people for medical malpractice cases for 6 years in Miami. I'm running for state attorney because I care about the people of Broward County, and I believe I'm the best candidate to bring about the systematic changes that we've all been waiting for.
Good evening. My name is Sarah Nell Murphy. I'm a Florida native and a lifelong Democrat. I've been married for 21 years, and I have 2 little girls. My dad, who is a World War II veteran, has been living with us for the past 16 years. But I've been working for you as an assistant state attorney for the past 24 years. In that time, I've had the opportunity to serve as the chief of our domestic violence unit, as well as the chief of our county court unit, which has given me the opportunity to supervise hundreds of people, both attorneys and staff, over the years. I've created innovative diversionary programs for the office in both of those positions to give people deserving a second opportunity not to be labeled a criminal. It's through my experience, my knowledge, and my leadership skills, I will bring transparency and accessibility to the position of state attorney in Broward County. And it's for those reasons I'm asking for your support in 2020. Thanks for coming this evening.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Harold Pryor, and I'm a proud husband, proud father, and a proud attorney. But before I go any further, I want to thank the Florida League of Women Voters, FIU Law, moderators, and the Sun Center. I think it's only fitting that we are here to do this debate and that the Florida League of Women are moderating this in the sense that the centennial for the 19th Amendment will be in August. And I think it's fitting because this is an important race, one of the more important races in Broward County. But also it's fitting that we're having this debate right here in the African American Research Library. It's one of only 3 in the whole entire United States, and it's right here on Sistrunk Avenue, which is the epicenter of black culture and black life in Broward County. We know and we understand that a lot of the candidates on this forum are going to be talking about criminal justice reform. But we know that the criminal justice system has been traditionally stacked against people of color and poor people. And I understand that. But I also understand that no matter your walk of life or where you come from, right, we all want safer communities. And as the next state attorney, I am dedicated to ensuring that we initiate ground-level criminal justice reform while not compromising the safety of our communities. Let's make history.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Joshua Rydell. I'm about a 15-year criminal defense attorney. I'm an elected official in the city of Coconut Creek. I serve the people of Coconut Creek as a city commissioner. I've been a mayor of that city. At the age of 33, I was one of the youngest elected officials in Broward County to get elected in 2015 to that post. My day job has been, I've been a criminal defense attorney working in this system across this state and across this country. I've served numerous people in numerous places, helping them in a system. And what have I seen in this system? I've seen a system that's broken in terms of how we treat people with substance abuse, how we treat people with mental health issues, and how we treat people that deserve a break that a lot of times don't get it. And also, what I've seen in the city of Coconut Creek is people that deserve to be punished don't get the right punishment a lot of times. So I've seen a system that doesn't necessarily punish the right people the right way. And in serving about 60,000 residents, I've overseen a municipal police department that has instituted very motivational change in community policing, which is a crux and a platform of what we're doing here today. So again, Joshua Rydell, I want to thank our moderators for doing this and everyone for being here tonight.
Good evening. I'm Teresa Elizabeth Williams. I am 50 years old. I have 25 years of experience in criminal justice. I've been married for 30 years. I have a degree in the administration of criminal justice from the University of North Carolina in Chapel Hill. And I have raised 2 amazing young adults in my home and plantation where I've lived for 23 years. And I'm here to ask you for your vote to make me the next state attorney of Broward County and the first female state attorney in the history of Broward County. I am the only candidate in this race that has significant administrative experience on both sides of the podium. When I started my career at the Miami-Dade County State Attorney's Office, I worked there for 10 years. I became the Division Chief of the Career Criminal Robbery Unit. I've also run my own law firm for the past 12 years, and I'm one of a handful of female criminal defense attorneys who've been successful in this area of law. But most importantly, I'm the candidate in this race that you don't have to guess whether or not I have a true commitment to criminal justice reform. I ran against Mike Sass in 2016. I got 48% of the vote, and I'm back to finish what I started. I hope that all of you will give me the opportunity to do that. I ask you to make me your next state attorney for Broward County. Thank you so much.
Thank you, candidates. Okay, so our first question. And I will read the question, and then we'll pull a name out of the bucket, and then we'll vote. So minorities have long been overrepresented in the criminal justice system, and there's documented disparity in sentencing of minorities. This is evident not only in scholarship and statistics nationwide, but also on display on any given day in any felony court in Broward County. How have you studied this phenomenon? How do you explain it, and how will you address it if elected as state attorney? First up, Sheila Liu.
Good evening again. One of the first things that we could do to help minorities is for the state attorney to take an active role in joining with the community to ensure that our population, especially our minority population, has basic access to education, to therapy, to substance abuse issues. We need to take an active role and stop prosecuting minorities. And we need to, one of my biggest plans for the office is there's 22,000 misdemeanors that are filed every year and about 13 or 14,000 felonies. We can divert half of those people at least. With the money that we raise through the cost of prosecution and diversion, we could give so much substance abuse treatment and therapy. We do need to stop prosecuting people who are less fortunate than us. Let me tell you something. The reason why I'm the compassionate prosecutor that I am, I'm not the typical person that you see who runs for office. I was brought up in foster care. I lost my sister to drug addiction. I held her in my arms when she was 39 years old and she bled out of every hole in her body. I'm compassionate because I know what substance abuse does to a family, regardless if you're black or white, who you love, who you don't, what color you are, what socioeconomics you come from. We need to go out into the community, and the only way we're going to fix addiction and substance abuse issues and mental health issues is by getting in the community and giving them the sources and the resources and the therapy they need. Oh, you want me to stand here? And I bought this new red dress.
The criminal legal system is not accidentally racist. It was built that way. From slavery to lynchings to Jim Crow to our new war on drugs, African Americans are overrepresented in the system at every single step of the process. From being stopped by police, from being arrested by police, from being charged, and to being sentenced. If we are truly going to dismantle white supremacy, we cannot settle for nibble around the edges changes to our criminal justice system. We have to have big structural changes. We do that by getting rid of the systems that create racism, cash bail, mandatory minimums, stop and frisk, pretextual vehicle cases. If we really want to do this, we've got to be big and bold. Thank you.
State attorney, I don't know that can fix all the world's problems. I don't know that we can make everything fair, the economy, to take care of all the things that have, the discrimination in our community, but we can certainly try. We can certainly try to make sure that the police treat everybody with respect. We can certainly try to make sure that the laws are fair and equal. But we can certainly try, too, to try to help those people that are drug addicted and those people that have mental illness, and not just use the jails as a way for people to make money. State attorney, the most important thing is to keep safe, and that's everybody safe. And sometimes that means putting people in jail, even to help them, believe it or not. But as Jim Lewis, I will look into these other ways to try to make the system more fair and give everybody a fair shake, and that's all that anybody could ask for.
So I've studied American history, and racial disparity has started from the beginning. It started with slavery. And then when slavery ended, it went into laws where, such as you have to have a job, otherwise you're a criminal. And black people couldn't get jobs, so they would be arrested. And then they moved on to the Jim Crow laws. And then there was segregation laws. And then when we had the civil rights movement, we began the war on drugs, and that's when mass incarceration began. The issues are at every level of the criminal justice system. How am I going to address it? I'm going to address it by increasing diversion programs. I'm going to set up a data program so you can see who's prosecuted for what, and make sure that people prosecuted for the same crime, have the same criminal history, and receive the same sentences.
Ms. Murphy?
You didn't restate yourself.
Oh, we didn't?
No, sorry.
Is it okay now?
Yeah, yep.
Okay.
Okay, so the first part of that question was, has anyone studied? And I have. So let me tell you that as of right now, the population out of Broward County in the Department of Corrections is 6,236 individuals, 3,910 of them categorized as black, which is the only characterization that DOC does. 2,128 of them are white, and 198 of them are represented as other. So what that is demonstrative of is that people of color are clearly overrepresented in our prison system. So let me tell you what I've already done. When I realized that the civil citation program was being meted out in Weston to the Hispanic and to the affluent white population there, rather than used in Lauderdale Lakes, Lauderhill, and the communities it was intended to help, I changed ours, expanded it to allow 3 opportunities in our diversionary program. That's just a start.
Mr. Pryor?
First of all, thank you for that question. In all due respect, I haven't had to study the issue because I lived it. I've been pulled over 10 times throughout my whole life. Twice as a prosecutor, leaving the office, working late nights, 11:30 at night, coming home. And the office couldn't give me reasonable articulate suspicion as to why he was pulling me over. But also, I've experienced the criminal justice system from the vantage point of having family members and close friends, 5 or 6 of them, murdered, brutally murdered, and watching the killers go free. Also, family members who were addicted to drugs, who had mental health issues, and rather than them get the help that they need, they were placed into the system. One way that we can fix this sentencing disparity is to change the culture of the office. Not value our prosecutors based on conviction rate, but value them on doing the right thing. Fairness, justice, and equality. If we do that, it pour into all of the other issues that we see that are stacked against people of color and poor people in this county. And so that's how I will initiate change as the next state attorney.
So to answer the question directly, it was about studying why minorities are really over-prosecuted. It really starts if you look at the juvenile justice system. If you look at minority communities and you look at minority zip codes, factual, minority zip codes for direct file rates are some of the highest, almost closest to 100% direct file rates, as opposed to non-minority communities, out west communities in this county. Your disparity starts there. It starts with kids that we're injecting into a criminal justice system. It's really hard to overcome a system that's been happening for 4 decades of systematic racism in Broward County. But what's the start? The start is understanding a database system to start somewhere. And where do you start that? With 2 seconds. You start that with making prosecutors and giving them access and discretion to be more humane on the cases that they have. Not that they need supervisor approval to not send someone to prison.
Very recently, the Sarasota Tribune did a study that found that black people are sentenced 3 times higher than white people in this county. I'll tell you what I won't be doing. I won't be ignoring that. Like it has been ignored for 4 decades. Like it's been ignored by everybody who walks into our courtroom and sees a face full of people who are black in our box. It's time to end this. It is time to impose implicit bias training into our system so that people realize that there is implicit racism that we may not realize that we're doing. We need to keep track of the statistics of what was actually happening in our courtrooms, and we need to react to them. And most importantly, if you are not implementing rehabilitation into punishment in the criminal justice system, all you are doing is the same thing over and over again that doesn't work.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
I will-
30 seconds.
I will agree with many of the speakers tonight. One of the biggest problems in our office and the state attorney is plain and simple the administration. Prosecutors do not have the authority and the right or the discretion to break down a case. That's wrong. And you are only valued by how many trials that you have done. My issue since I've been in the office and my priority, and every one of you here know who are in the defense bar, when you call me, I return your calls immediately. I look to finding resolutions to cases. Recently, I've been doing drive-alongs with police officers to find out what is the problem, how do we fix it? And how do we fix it? Is we give prosecutors the discretion to break down cases. We provide jobs, education, and housing to people like Judge Flo is doing, what Judge Tudor is doing with homelessness issues and substance abuse, and we divert and give diversion and treatment to every person, regardless if you're black, brown, who you love, white, black,
Sheila, thank you very much.
Democrat or Republican. And let me just tell you one more thing. Under my watch, this racial diversity, this racial discrimination will not happen. Thank you very much.
Second question. Can you hear me? No. Second question. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
The state attorney's office recently created a conviction review unit to ensure the integrity of its convictions. As a recent Sun Sentinel editorial noted, in Florida, Broward holds the dubious record for convicting people later found innocent. While the review unit is a constructive first step, other media coverage has noted that the unit looks to the past and not the future, failing to prioritize the goal of avoiding wrongful convictions in the first place. What will you do as state attorney to make sure the unit has integrity looking both backwards and forwards? And if elected, will you issue the first formal public apology on behalf of the state attorney's office to all of the known wrongfully convicted individuals and their families, demonstrating that this unit is more than just public relations? That was Mr. Kennedy, so don't, Mr. Rydell.
I think the most telling thing is that this conviction integrity unit was incepted in an election year. Can you hear me? It's on. Can you hear me now? Yeah. Do I get my time back? Do I get my time back? You get what I want to say today. There's a lot to say. I think the most telling thing that people need to realize is that this unit started, ironically, in an election year. This unit didn't start 15, 20, 30 years ago when Broward has the highest rate of putting the wrong people in prison for a long time. So that's an important thing to think of. Also, when you have a real conviction integrity unit, it's supposed to be completely independent of the office. This one created simply is not. There's oversight by administration that's currently there. If you want to have a real conviction integrity unit, it needs to be completely independent of the current state attorney's office. And when I'm state attorney, I will allow that. I will have a real conviction integrity unit that allows for people to exonerate people in any capacity. And the answer is, of course. If an administration before me to the panel convicted somebody wrongly, they are due a public apology.
Okay, so Ms. Murphy, you will be the next one. Just a moment.
I thought you wanted.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
I will most certainly tender an apology to any person who's been in a situation where they have been wrongfully committed or wrongfully convicted of a crime, because there can be no worse injustice for our system to happen than for somebody to be falsely convicted. And I have been jumping up and down and screaming for about 13 years since I became a defense attorney in this courthouse, begging for policies and procedures to be implemented. where people will listen to the defense witnesses that are presented and will listen to viable defenses and not simply leave these important decisions which affect people's everyday, who affect their lives, that destroy individuals and put them in the hands of a jury. You know what? Many people in this county are owed an apology. Many people in this county have been charged and convicted with no evidence. I plan on changing that. I'm Teresa Williams for State Attorney. Thank you.
Let me first apologize to all the people in Broward County that have been wrongfully convicted. I don't know why my boss has refused to apologize to these people. Everyone who knows me knows that I say what's true. This integrity unit is an absolute joke. How we found out that there was an integrity unit, I believe I read it in the newspaper. She's one woman, that's not a unit. She's not an independent. She can't even raise her own funds. She tried to raise her own funds and she was shot down. An integrity unit should be outside of the office and have no interaction with administration. We need a real integrity unit, and when I become your state attorney, we will have an actual real unit. And again, as a case filer, because I'm now in case filing.
Time. Thank you.
I have cried in court once. It was last year in January. I represented a man who spent 10.5 years in prison for a murder that he did not commit. And he was very, very lucky to get ordered a retrial. And I tried that case, and we won it. And we walked him out the front door of the courthouse. And I was standing next to him while he saw sunshine and freedom for the first time. It changes a person. The integrity unit needs to be fully funded. It needs investigators. It needs to be able to teach ongoing classes on what causes wrongful convictions, misidentification, false confessions, race-based jury selection. We have to be committed to this, and as state attorney, I will be. Thank you.
Even the best of systems makes mistakes, and certainly statistics have shown we here in Broward County have made our share. There's nothing worse than an innocent man going to prison for a jail he doesn't commit. But I can't spend all my time, if I'm your newly elected state attorney, to apologize for Mike Satz. I like Mike Satz as a person. Some people say he doesn't have a heart. But I will look at these cases strongly. And if there's any suggestion that there's an innocent person in jail, we're going to fix it. And we're going to apologize for it. Yeah, but that's not enough. You got to fix it. And I am convinced that there are too many people from Broward County that are sitting in prison, in jail, right now for crimes that they didn't commit. And I'm going to do that. The fundamental first job has to be to look at those cases again and to fix what went wrong.
So yes, the first thing is I would apologize to anyone that our office has wrongfully convicted for any crime. If we wrongfully convicted someone of murder or any other crime, they deserve an apology. To ensure going forward that we're not going to have wrongful convictions, I'll try to ensure that our office does not have a win at all costs attitude. An office that's focused on the same thing I've been focused on since I've been a prosecutor, and that's doing the right thing. Try to do what's right, look at all the evidence, listen to defense witnesses, listen to defense counsel, see what they have to say. With respect to the conviction integrity unit, I'd like to add resources, add personnel, and take it a step further and make it not just a conviction integrity unit, but a sentence review unit. There may have been sentences that were given, that were negotiated, that shouldn't have been given.
In my 24 years in the office, everything I've done has been with integrity. There's nothing more important for a prosecutor. Our system is not infallible. And when it makes mistakes, we have to right those wrongs. And we will continue to do that. As for the unit, there are models nationwide that I'm in the process of examining and studying to see which ones are working properly. I do believe that there needs to be independence from the administration, be that me or anyone else. Because I assure you, there is no greater failing than to incarcerate an innocent person. And as your state attorney, I assure you, that will not occur.
First, thank you for the question, and I truly believe that the Conviction Integrity Unit should be an independent arm of the state attorney's office. I applaud the current state attorney for creating it, but it needs to go a step further. We need to create a separate arm that serves as an independent auditor of the state attorney's office. On an annual basis, the Conviction Integrity Unit will review the cases of all the prosecutors, and we'll look at those cases, and we'll make evaluations based on the evaluation of those cases. Like I said earlier, if we move from the trend of valuing prosecutors based on their conviction rate and move towards a paramount goal of justice, fairness, and equality, it will pour into the mass incarceration issue, it will pour into this exoneration issue, and this is how we move forward in dealing with this. And that we do this independent auditing to make sure that our prosecutors are following through and doing the right thing.
So just in rebuttal, I think you heard a lot of consistency that people don't believe the current system has the independence it is required to and deserves. You heard some consistency among that, and that's troubling. But what also is troubling, you take it from a guy who's represented over 2,000 people in over 15 years. There's a culture, and that culture is let a jury decide. That should never be a culture. It shouldn't be focused on let a jury decide. The focus should be justice, not convictions. Under a Josh Rydell administration, if you're willing to elect me as your state attorney, we will redefine smart justice to keep this community safer and move forward to make Broward better. Thank you.
The state attorney's office has been under the same leadership for 43 years. This brings about a remarkable level of consistency and stability, but it also embeds a culture in which things are done a certain way. Decisions are made by a certain process, and the people in positions of relative authority have made a career-long practice of adhering to that process. If, as state attorney, you intend to implement criminal justice reforms in any significant way, can you do that while leaving the same people in charge of the same duties, particularly in the senior leadership roles? How will you lead the process of changing an office that has not seen this kind of overhaul since the final days of the Ford administration? And that question is going to Mr. McCormick.
Stand up here, right? Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, I was a prosecutor in Pittsburgh, assistant district attorney before I came here. I loved the job. It was the best job that I had ever had. I started in the office, and I started in the misdemeanor level, and the first day I went to court and I tried to resolve a case. It was possession of marijuana and possession of paraphernalia. I said, okay, we'll drop the paraphernalia charge, plead to the possession of marijuana charge. And I resolved the case just like that. It was a plea bargain. Everybody felt like they got something out of the deal. I went back to my supervisor and he said, you can't do that. You can't drop anything. You need a legal basis to drop it. I said, no, don't worry, it was a plea negotiation. No, that's not a plea negotiation. So I couldn't drop anything unless there was a legal basis. From that moment on, I decided that things needed to change. And how am I going to change things? First of all, the leadership, people that are in leadership positions, they will be fired, but they'll be offered other jobs. There'll be all new people in the leadership position. When I started, there was no training. Garrett did a great job. He's leaving. There's going to be new training coming on board. We're going to have expansive training, additional supervisors, additional training. And another thing I brought to Broward County was known as prosecutorial discretion. That was a legal theory that I practiced in Pittsburgh that really wasn't understood when I came to Broward.
Time. Ms. Murphy?
So in answer to the question about the current leadership, a lot of them are going at the end of this term. And the answer is I don't know. What needs to be done is whoever is chosen to be the new state attorney needs to lay out what their plan will be. My philosophy has always been that if you are like-minded and you are willing to explore the changes that we're going to need going forward, then you're a part of the team. We have over 200 assistant state attorneys, and I assure you, they are working hard every day for a salary that is a pittance of what they deserve. Many of them are sitting out there tonight. Those folks work hard, and they deserve to keep their job. They also deserve the support and training that they need, not just in the beginning of their careers, but consistently.
Nice.
Whoever takes over that office will have a steep climb. They'll have to do a lot of changes, and there'll be a lot of reforms that would have to be initiated. My first act on day one will be to audit the books, to audit the finances of the state attorney's office. It's baffling to me that in the 2019 and 2020 fiscal year, the state attorney's office was allocated $40 million. We all know that 95% of the monies allocated to the state attorney's office go to salaries, but yet we're not adequately paying our state attorneys or support staff. That shouldn't have to be. We have to first take care of home. We have to take care of our state attorneys and our support staff, the people who work every day for you in this room. But also, we want to institute justice, fairness, and equality, people. It's that simple. And we have to recruit and retain talented prosecutors who are reflective of the community they serve, but also understands the community that they serve. And I'm dedicated to do that as the next state attorney for Broward County.
I guess rebut that. I mean, what's been going on there has been just institutionally incorrect for so long. When I started 15 years ago, if you sold crack cocaine, standard offer, state attorney's office, 18 months Florida State prison. I mean, that in and of itself is institutional racism, because who else do you do? Minority communities are selling crack cocaine. So the issue is, do bad people have to go? The vengeful people, the vindictive people, the mean-spirited people, the people that hurt other people? Yes, they need to go. But there's a lot of good people in that office. People that have been there 20 years, who I have relationships with, that I see every day when I'm in court, that want to do the right thing, but they're stigmatized and can't. And they can't because of the upper administration. That's what needs to change. And that's how I will change it.
What I see happening in the courthouse is that I see a lot of lawyers who are apologizing to me on a regular basis. I really wish that I could help you, but my hands are tied. And quite frankly, I think that many of the senior level attorneys at the office have been micromanaged. They've never been given the opportunity to be real supervisors. They never have been given the opportunity to formulate discretion and create the right type of logic that's necessary to make this office run the way that it should. So you know what? I want to give people an opportunity. There are many people at the higher level that are already double dipping. They're going to be retiring. But there are many other people that I want to give them the opportunity to learn what I'm about. And if you can come on board, I will be the greatest boss you've ever had. So thank you very much, Teresa Williams, for staying.
Honestly, we wouldn't be in this position if Mr. Sachs didn't allow to retain his department heads. We have 4 people that are costing us $800,000 a year because Mike Sachs refuses to allow them to retire. They should have already been retired. We have amazing, articulate, smart, bright lawyers that would make great division heads. We have absolutely no succession program in the state attorney's office. I already have in my mind innovative young prosecutors that are going to make great division heads. So we're going to have justice reform under Sheila Alou. Double dipping is wrong, and for the state attorney to skirt the state law to allow them to double dip is an absolute tragedy, and we should all not stand for it.
Being very aware that I am in a room full of mostly state attorneys, I mean this in the nicest, kindest way possible. There's going to be some people who will get fired. Look, if we're going to do really big structural change, then we need big structural change in personnel. I want to bring on public defenders and former public defenders. I want to bring on civil rights lawyers. I want to cross the country to find the smartest, brightest people that can help come in and help me
break this ship down and build something brand new together. I think by the end of this first year, the Broward State Attorney's Office can be the premier destination for law school grads that want to be real civil rights lawyers.
Time.
Thank you.
There's some real changes coming from the top and all the way through the office. But I got to tell you, we can sit here and we can bash Mike Sachs all night, but he hired some really good people.
That's right.
And they're there trying cases every day. We ought to give them credit. We ought to give them the discretion to do what they know is right. And when it's time to try a case, try a case. When it's time to throw a case away or do it. But stop spending so much time prosecuting marijuana cases and stupid cases. Give these people, these qualified people, the ability to do their job. There'll be some changes at the top, absolutely, and most of them are going to leave of their own volition. But if you give Jim Lewis a chance, we will make the right personnel, and we will keep those people who are there that are fighting for us every day, our great lawyers.
If you want to work in my administration at the State Attorney's Office, you're going to apply for the position like anybody else, and there's going to be an interview. And when I'm State Attorney, if you want to go to a special unit, it's not going to be the current way where it's just a conveyor belt. You're the next person on the list. If you want to go to a certain unit, you're going to apply to that unit. There's going to be a deadline. There's going to be interviews, and then you can be hired by that chief to go work for that unit. My philosophy going forward is going to be to do the right thing. And we're going to focus on violent crime and crime that harms the community. And the other focus is going to be on keeping people out of the criminal justice system. And we're going to do that by expanding diversion, have pre-arrest, deferred prosecution, and additional opportunities for mental health issues and those addicted to drugs.
Thank you. In Miami-Dade, police shootings are reviewed by a committee of senior prosecutors, and a detailed memo is authored explaining the rationale for either for or against criminal charges. In Broward, the SAO takes the cases to the grand jury, which are, of course, secret hearings. How, if at all, would you change the mechanism of how the SAO office decides on criminal charges in police shooting or use of force cases? Joseph.
Michael Brown, Eric Garner, Samir Rice, DeLuca Roll. We say their names because we must not forget that the legacy of police brutality in this country. An unarmed black man is 3.5 times more likely to be shot by a police officer than an unarmed white man. Every 7 hours, somebody is killed in this country by a police officer, and less than 1% of police officers are indicted for those crimes. 90% of citizens are indicted. Yes, it is important to aggressively prosecute police brutality. But it is also important to get rid of the mechanisms that create these violent encounters. Stop and frisk, pretextual vehicle stops, the war on drugs. When we start getting rid of these, instances that allow for this, then we start to decrease police brutality. The mechanism in which it can be prosecuted, I am very much in favor of an independent prosecutor, somebody from outside of the state attorney's office, somebody without a conflict of interest being brought on, and to aggressively prosecute police brutality. Thank you.
There's a procedure in Florida statute, for some reason we don't use anymore. It's called a coroner's inquest. And basically what that is going to be like a grand jury, but it's out in the public. It's going to be a judge that's presiding. The press and everybody can see. We'll present these cases having to do with police shootings to see whether charges are appropriate or not. But folks, like it or not, prosecutors and police, they're a team. All right? They're a team. But prosecutors have to look out for when members of the team go wrong. And when they shoot people they shouldn't shouldn't shoot. When they arrest people, they shouldn't arrest. When they lie under oath, when they do it shouldn't be just what we catch on video. If we can prove that a police officer has done wrong, then it should be prosecuted like anybody else. But folks, the same token, the police have to have faith that the prosecutors will do the right thing, and they're not just going to go out and prosecute them because it's politically correct.
So the question was about us prosecuting police shootings, but I don't think it was entirely correct, because the question was about prosecuting police shootings, but the question wasn't entirely accurate, because every police shooting does not go to the grand jury right now. In my position, I review police shootings myself, and I decide whether or not that charges will be brought. And what I do is I review all the evidence, and I bring in witnesses, and I speak to them, and I collect anything that may be available, video, sworn statements, anything of that matter. And then if it's a close call, I check with other prosecutors, and we have basically a panel, and we make a decision if we're going to file.
So we do have a unit currently that prosecutes police officers for conduct, inappropriate conduct, and criminal conduct. The question was directly on which system we would utilize in determining whether or not to charge in a police-involved shooting. And the answer under my administration would be both. We do utilize the grand jury system. However, the grand jury system is secret. So in the interest of transparency, when I'm elected next state attorney in Broward County, I will create an officer-involved shooting committee made up of senior members in order to do a proper and public analysis of whether or not a charge is appropriate. That would include the publication of everything that we have done in order to reach our conclusion, so that the public can be informed of the legal and factual reason for that decision.
For far too long, when dealing with police misconduct or law enforcement misconduct, the state attorney's office has failed to be transparent and open and hold itself accountable. Well, under my administration, we will hold ourselves accountable, and we'll be open and transparent during the process. We will have a panel of experienced attorneys, but also attorneys with different walks of life, who actually understand the communities that they serve. And we will review these cases, and they'll be open and subject to public records requests pursuant to the Sunshine Laws, and I will be held accountable. The moment I decide to prosecute a law enforcement officer, I'll be held accountable to the unions and the law enforcement officers, and I'll stand upon my word on that. And in the event that I do decide not to prosecute a law enforcement officer, I'll stand tall and I'll reach out to the members of the community who disagree with that. Because that is your goal, that is your duty as state attorney, to be held accountable and be able to speak in front of the community and hold yourself accountable and be strong on your decisions.
There's kind of a war in the country right now against law enforcement. There's the largest shortage in the history of the country for people wanting to go into law enforcement because it's a cultural issue right now. People don't want to be cops anymore. It's not an honorable profession anymore, and it's kind of sad that we've reached that point. So when you look at concepts of police misconduct, you got to look at the root of it. How do you fix it through community policing? How do you start building bridges with law enforcement communities so that there isn't police misconduct? Step one. Step two, we need a real grand jury proceeding. Right now, the prosecutor's office governs the message in a grand jury proceeding. They're in charge of the narrative that's delivered to a grand jury. That's not real independence. That's the narrative of a prosecutor sitting in a civil proceeding getting the result they want. If you want to talk about really utilizing a grand jury that this state attorney has never done, we have the ability to do that by having a real independent body that can not just look at police misconduct, but look at other social issues that are going on in Broward County to come up with findings of how to fix bigger problems. So if we had a real independent grand jury, the right cops would be getting prosecuted, and not like the current system where we have the wrong cops being prosecuted.
I've represented police officers officers in criminal proceedings, and I have also filed civil rights actions against police agencies in reference to wrongful deaths. So I've been on both sides of the podium in reference to this issue. When I ran in 2016, one of the main parts of my platform was eradicating the use of grand juries because of the secrecy behind them. It creates a major problem in our community when people see something that seems so obvious to them, and yet they hear suddenly out of the blue, with no ability to look at what went behind it, that a grand jury has acquitted somebody. We need to stop that. Quite frankly, what I truly believe should happen is that the Florida Department of Law Enforcement should investigate police shootings, an entirely independent agency. But until they do that, I will utilize the same type of committee that I presented in my platform in 2016 to be held accountable for the decisions we make on these cases. Thank you.
I was married to a police officer who was catastrophically burned in the line of duty in 1995 and used his weapon to shoot somebody, and it changed our life. And he was then, again, before a grand jury when he used his weapon to shoot someone that was yielding a machete at him. And I am pro-law enforcement. I'm a prosecutor, and it's true what Jim Lewis says. We do work hand in hand with law enforcement, but we do need to hold them accountable. My idea is to allow the Special Prosecutions Unit to review police shootings along with the Citizen Advisory Committee and really make the process transparent.
Time.
So I think it's really interesting. We're having this discussion about all of the different ways to provide due process to charged police officers, right? There's an internal affairs investigation. There's perhaps a special prosecutions unit investigation. There's perhaps a grand jury. All levels of due process that may be appropriate. But you know who's not getting those levels of due process? Everybody else. And so I think that, you know, whatever we give levels of due process to make sure we're getting it right to law enforcement, we have to do everything we possibly can to give it to everybody else as well. Thank you.
Okay, there is a perception that Broward's current diversion programs are too restrictive, with too many impediments to entry, including an onerous written application process for felons. For example, unlike our neighboring jurisdictions to the north and the south, we require defendants to sign a statement of guilt. There also is a lack of consistency between the misdemeanor and the felony programs in Broward County. As a state attorney, will you address these issues? Will you will you implement the first ever first-time DUI diversion program similar to the programs long in place in Palm Beach, Miami, and in many other Florida jurisdictions? And before you answer, I will just say, as the previously disclosed rules, we are allowed to jump back in and try to pin you down. I really would like all you to answer the direct question about the DUI diversion. Thank you. Jim Lewis is the winner.
Well, I think generally we do need to do more for diversion. We need to do a whole lot more for mental health, and we need to fund that court more and just find places that have mental health issues to go. I've had mental health in my family, and I've dealt with that. I know what it's like. And we just to put them in jail again and again and again is wrong. Juveniles, we put too many juveniles in felony court, too many juveniles in prison. We need to do more to try to save these people, not just lock them up. And I'm going to ask that this DUI is a very serious crime. I'm sorry, it is. And I don't favor a diversion program like they have to the north and the south. There's a reason that people who drink and drive and out here running over and killing people, it is serious. So I don't take it as a slight crime. I think maybe we need to do a little bit more than just give them big fines and take their license away forever. Maybe do more in terms of community service and trying to realize that you need to find something else to do other than to drink and to drive. Because quite frankly, we all look around, all of us could have been there probably at some point in our lives, right? We're lucky we didn't get caught or we didn't kill somebody. Those penalties are there for a reason, and I don't favor diversion for DUI.
Justin McCormack. A large part of my platform is expanding diversion programs. But when I came back to Broward County, I was shocked that we didn't have a DUI diversion program. Now, I think DUI is very, very serious. What we have now is we have a conviction-only approach basically to DUIs. And what happens is the cases get dragged out for years, and then they get to trial, where oftentimes we don't win, or they get broken down to a reckless. So what I want to have is more of a DUI accountability program, where people have to go through treatment, take DUI courses, do community service, and go through all the stuff that they would get anyway if they were convicted, but have everybody involved in that right off the bat instead of the few that do get convicted.
So we're doing a really good job with diversionary programs right now. We have so many specialized courts that are designed for that, for rehabilitation. We have our veterans court, we have drug court, we have mental health court, we have diversionary programs both at the felony level and at the misdemeanor level, and they're working. As far as the expansion of those programs and the requirements, one of the first things that I would do is put a person in place to review the policies of each of those courts and each of those programs. Part of the problem is that some of the things that are required are statutory, which obviously we know as the state attorney we cannot change. But some have been done by administrative order and do need to be addressed with our chief judge. That said, as far as DUI diversion goes, the issue with DUI diversion is that what happens when someone completes it is their charge gets entirely dropped off their record. Recidivists fall through the cracks. I am not in favor of DUI diversion, but I am in favor of utilizing our discretion to give first-time offenders an opportunity for supervision, rehabilitation, and a reduced charge of reckless driving.
Harold Pryor, and thank you for that question. In order to fight this mass incarceration issue and the issue of having overpopulated prisons and jails is to expand our diversion programs. Also, I am a proponent for a first-time DUI offender diversion program, if done correctly, which goes to my next statement. As state attorney on day one, the first thing we're going to do, we're going to audit the books, and we're going to do a full audit of our administrative practices. And we're going to look at all these programs, see what's working, see what isn't working, and expand on those programs that need to be expanded. And so, also, another thing is, we have programs in place, but we aren't pushing those programs because we've turned these programs that are supposed to help people in mental health court and other courts into adversarial processes, when actually we should be there helping the people that are actually in those programs. So as state attorney, I will advocate to expand diversion programs because it's the right thing to do.
I completely support expanding diversion programs when obviously people qualify. I think we also need to assess how our current diversion programs are implemented. I think our panel is correct. It's a very involved process. It's not easy. It's not easy for somebody that doesn't have a lawyer. It's not easy for somebody just trying to work through the system to get this paperwork process done, to qualify, to do the right thing. So we need to make it easier. We need to make it simple. Our county court diversion program, it's intensive. It doesn't need to be run like that. Some of our programs that are run in Dade County and in Palm Beach County, they do it right. The data proves it. But again, what some of the other people said, it's hard to get that data out of Broward County in terms of there's not as much transparency on the actual numbers. And to answer, Bill, your question very directly, in terms of a bright line DUI program, I mean, listen, I stood in the Palm Beach County courtroom when my wife lost a cousin to a DUI manslaughter case. So they're serious. They're serious crimes. So do I believe there should be a bright line DUI diversion? The answer is no. But do I believe that there should be the ability to break down cases much easier in the discretion of state attorneys after looking at somebody's individual, experience? The answer is yes, because if you have a bright line test for breaking down DUIs, recidivists fall through the cracks and people die.
Thank you.
I absolutely believe that we should be implementing a DUI diversion program, but I also come from the perspective of having had an extremely close friend who was a chronic alcoholic, almost lost custody of her children. And I was one of those people who prayed for her DUI. That's what got her to rock bottom. And so I believe in a program that does a stringent screening process to make sure that people who are part of it are not the people who have chronic alcohol problems, who are going to be a menace to the community, who won't stop drinking. And that it is applied to those who made an honest mistake and will rectify that behavior when given some training and rehabilitation. I will not impose hard and fast rules on pretrial diversion. I will apply the pretrial diversion programs when I feel they're appropriate. And that will be on a case-by-case basis.
Time,
We will be
thank you very
expanding
much.
them significantly, and I think that's an important part of criminal justice reform. Thank you.
To answer Bill's question specifically, I absolutely will support a DUI diversion program, just like they have outlined in Palm Beach County and Miami-Dade. It's very strict. It's supported by the Mothers Against Drunk Drivers if it's the first time DUI. And as far as our diversion program, my platform is to divert and give treatment to as many people as possible that we can rehabilitate, and we've got to start thinking rehabilitation and not incarceration. I'm going to lower the caseloads for ASAs and public defenders by diverting. If I divert, we file about 22,000 cases in misdemeanor and about 14,000 cases in felony. If I can divert 10,000 of those cases, not only are we going to raise significant amount of funding so that we could pay for substance abuse, we're also going to be able to have funding to pay our employees a decent living wage.
Time.
We have to start thinking about rehabilitation and stop thinking about incarceration.
I mean, we know every time you convict somebody of anything, even with a withhold, it hurts their ability for their future. It hurts the ability for their kids' future. It hurts their upward mobility, their ability to get out of poverty. And so right now, diversion is treated as the exception to the rule. I think diversion should be the default, and that prosecution and that incarceration should be reserved for those folks that truly are a threat to us in our community. For DUI diversion, I support DUI diversion, not because I think it's weak or because I think it helps folks get away with it, but because it's tougher. We got way too many folks getting away with DUI in our misdemeanor courts right now. And if we expand the DUI diversion program that gets more folks in, that gets more folks into alcohol counseling and all of the services that they aren't getting now because they're getting away with DUIs, we're going to dramatically expand and help keep people safe from DUIs. Thank you.
Drug court's great, helps a lot of people. But I had 4 clients die this year from this opioid epidemic. And there's a place for diversion programs, but I gotta tell you too, there's a place for jail too. And those people out there that are pushing this fentanyl and this heroin that are killing people, they need to go to jail. That's gotta be part of the equation. This is the biggest crisis that we have here in this county, is people are dying or showing up every day over there at the ME's office dead because they don't know what they're getting because there's greedy drug dealers out here pushing this crap. And they don't need diversion. Their ass needs to go to jail. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Next question.
A little spat here. When the state attorney in Orlando announced unilaterally that she would no longer seek the death penalty in her jurisdiction, her office lost funding and she lost jurisdiction over homicide cases. We are in a jurisdiction where the death penalty is less popular than elsewhere in the state. What are your thoughts on how the Orlando state attorney handled her policy decision? And as state attorney here, what factors will you take into consideration to ensure the death penalty is applied fairly and evenly? Mr. Pryor.
First of all, thank you for the question, and that question is referring to a good friend of mine, Prosecutor Aramis Ayala. She was the first African-American elected to that position in the state of Florida, and I think she did a wonderful job. I think what I would do differently than Aramis is that, look, personally, I am against the death penalty. I am personally against it. But as state attorney on day one, I'm going to swear to uphold the Constitution and the laws of the Constitution. And so I'm beholden to that. I have to follow the Constitution. And so whenever we have a death penalty case that comes across our office or comes across my desk, we're going to review them on a case-by-case basis. And so that my personal judgment isn't clouding the process, I will have a panel of experienced attorneys with different walks of life. They'll review the cases, they'll look at the facts, we'll use our investigators to look at each individual case, they'll make their recommendation, and they'll bring it to my office, and we'll make a decision from there. Sometimes we may decide to go with the death penalty in a particular case, and there may be some cases that we won't. But that would be my stance once I'm elected as the next state attorney of Broward County.
Just by a quick show of hands, how many people have tried a case, the lawyer that's tried a case in this room? A lot of lawyers here. So in a standard jury instruction at the end of a trial, you hear something that says you may not agree with the law, but you are all bound by it. That's in the standard jury instructions in the state of Florida. Morally, the death penalty is a hard question. It brings up religious connotation. It brings up a lot of issues in people. It's a hot button issue in today's world. It's a hot button issue with the Nicholas Cruz case. It's a big issue. But the reality is some of my colleagues and some of the comments from this stage deal with issues that aren't in a prosecutor's purview. This is a job that we want to uphold and follow the law. Now, the next state attorney needs to be able to advocate as well for what that law should be, but still needs to follow the law. And that's why I believe I'm best suited for this job.
In 2016, a major part of my platform was implementing a death penalty review board. That death penalty review board would have not only experienced lawyers, but people from many other disciplines, psychologists, social workers, behavioral scientists, who will all assist in the decision-making process, which is one of the most important decisions any prosecutor will ever make. Essentially, I agree with Mr. Rydell that the state attorney does not get to create the law. We enforce the law. And what I do promise all of you is that if the death penalty is requested in one of our cases, you will know with 100% certainty that that person is guilty. Because we will not request it unless we can tell you that, unless we know that for sure. And at the end of the day, we will make sure the process is fair to everyone. Thank you very much.
I agree with my colleagues up here that we don't make the law, and we are sworn, I've been sworn in before as an elected official to uphold the laws of the Constitution, and that means upholding the death penalty. But having said that, our country is one of the only developed countries that still have the death penalty, and it hasn't stopped people from still killing each other in mass shootings. I'm not going to say that a blanket statement that I'm not going to uphold the death penalty. I am going to look at it as a case-by-case basis. Thank you very much.
The death penalty is a medieval practice that has no place in civilized society. It is not about the worst of the worst in this country. It's about race, it's about poverty, it's about mental illness. Broward County is one of only 3% of counties nationwide which still regularly imposes the death penalty. It is dying across the world and in this country. It doesn't offer deterrence, it doesn't offer closure for victims. It is more expensive than a life sentence. To me, the question is not whether someone deserves to die, it is whether we have a right to kill. And the government is too imperfect, we are too imperfect, our current state attorney is too imperfect. Under the Ayala decision, the state attorney is required to consider it. I would consider it, but I don't believe that I would ever impose it.
I'm from Orlando. I grew up there. My parents still live there, and I keep in touch with that community. Ms. Ayala was an absolute train wreck for that community. To say that I'm under no circumstances, no matter how serious and horrible the crime is, I would never seek the death penalty. That's probably why she's not running for re-election, which I think is a good idea. Well, I didn't mean to turn the lights out on her. But given that, the big issue is the death penalty and what we're going to do it here. And it should be reserved for the worst of the worst. I say don't take it off the table. Nicholas Cruz is never going to get the death penalty. There's just no way that's ever going to fly. I pray and hope that by the time if I were to be elected to take this job, that case will be over, but I sort of doubt it. I can tell you though that, this is Mr. Sachs, that he rode this horse in, and I'd like to see him ride it all the way out. But if all those families came together and said, we want to put this together, we don't want this, I might consider it, but I don't think that's going to happen. We're just going to have to let it play out. Thank you.
I'd like to jump in for a second here, my apologies. Mr. Lewis, if you say Nicholas Cruz is never going to get the death penalty, I'd like to know that if this case, with the number of murders that we had, with the pre-planning that is apparent, if this case doesn't get the death penalty, how do you justify it in any other case?
You got a young guy who has a mental health history that was totally ignored. The appellate courts are never going to let that happen. I know 17 people lost their lives. What a horrible case. I can't imagine being a parent of one of those kids. I don't know how I could breathe. But legally, that death penalty will never hold up. And we, to some extent, are wasting a lot of angst on it.
Thank you, Mr. Lewis. My apologies to the other candidate.
I'm not a proponent of the death penalty, but the death penalty is the law of the land. In the McCormack State Attorney's Office, here's how we're going to handle it. The homicide prosecutor that's assigned the case is going to review the evidence, investigate the case, and if they present to me what, if any, aggravating factors are there for the death penalty. If there are aggravating factors, then that prosecutor is going to prepare a memo and evidence and documentation and present it to 2 other death penalty attorneys, prosecutors in our office. And the 3 of them are going to make a decision, and then once they make a decision, that decision will report to me, and I'll make the ultimate decision.
Under my administration, I would plan to use a grand jury indictment panel. And what that means is once that indictment is returned and a decision must be made, that the members of this panel would meet to discuss factually and legally both mitigators and aggravators. I believe that the death penalty should be reserved for the most severe cases. However, I also know, as we saw in Orlando, that when a state attorney thinks they have the ability to create laws or not carry out their duties that are required, they will be removed. And I can't tell you the cost to the taxpayers for another jurisdiction to have to take over those capital prosecutions because of a dereliction of duty of a person who didn't run on that platform and announced after being elected she would not seek the death penalty. At that point, there was no choice but to take those cases away.
I'm not here to defend Ms. Ayala, but she is a good friend of mine. And Jim, you're a good friend of mine too, and I love you like a brother, but she's an excellent public servant. If you knew the threats that she received after day 1 for being elected, an uphill battle that she had to do to try to create reform, and being the first black woman to serve in that position, I think you would say that her life, in fact, was a train wreck after taking that job. As to the death penalty, as I said, the death penalty was created for situations just like the Nicholas Cruz case, for the most heinous crimes. And we can't take those crimes off the table or off the books. Like I said, I'm running to institute real ground level criminal justice reform while not compromising the safety of our communities. I'm a father of a 2-year-old son, and I can't imagine the pain that those parents are going through in that moment. And it just would not be incumbent upon me to just disregard that and say that the death penalty is not appropriate in any situation. We have to look at these cases on a case-by-case basis and be reasonable and prudent. Thank you.
Thank you. Retention. It's a significant issue for attorneys in the public sector, both prosecutors and the public defender's office. Leaving aside the issue of salary, which we'll talk about in a separate question, but what will you do to persuade talented lawyers to not only join your office, but to remain there long past the time they're trained and highly effective prosecutors? And how will you address morale concerns to ensure that significant advancement opportunities throughout your tenure, particularly those in office for more than 1 term? Ms. Murphy.
I can't tell you how strongly I feel that the recruitment and retention of prosecutors has a direct correlation to public safety. It is so greatly frustrating for a member of our community who has been victimized to call in June and get Sue, and to call in July and get Bob. It's frustrating. I think there are very simple mechanisms that we can put in place that I believe I have over the units where I've had the opportunity to be an administrator in the office. And the first is to let these prosecutors know how much you value them. It's a very simple thing to tell somebody, I appreciate you. I know you're here at 9 o'clock. I appreciate what you're doing, your time away from your family, the toll that this job takes on you personally and emotionally. I appreciate you. I try to remind myself to tell the lawyers that all the time. That goes a long way. We also have to do a better job of recruiting diversity, to have the prosecution office reflect our community in every way. That would be a focus of my recruiting. I think the retention issue also can be addressed fairly simply. Having supervised as many people as I have, I can spot talent. You promote based on that.
Time.
Well, to answer your question, the way you can boost morale is just pay them more money. Right? I alluded to this earlier in the 2018-19 fiscal year.
Mr. Pryor, I apologize. We asked that we keep salary as a separate question. That's why we didn't, I'm not sure if it was clear when it was asked. We're saving salary for another question.
Okay, all right. Okay, well, you need to pay them more. And we'll go That's one way to boost morale. And I'll address that at the next question. But also, there's ways to boost the morale. It was a personal thing for me and my wife in the sense that I found that our support staff of state attorneys, when they were pregnant, there was no paid maternity leave. Well, one way to boost that is we would introduce 2-month paid maternity and paternity leave for our state attorneys and our support staff. Secondly, I would work with court administration, public defender's office, and also I work with the clerk's office, and we would pool our resources and money together, and also with Broward County, and we would have a daycare for courthouse staff. So you as a parent, you don't have to pay the exorbitant fees of paying for your kids' daycare. My kids' daycare is a lot of money, people, a lot of money. And so those are ways that we can boost the morale and also recruit and retain talented prosecutors so they don't go elsewhere to make more money. And we gotta pay them.
I'm blessed to be an elected official in one of the best municipalities to work at in South Florida. We have something in our city of Coconut Creek called Creek Culture. It's our employees are happy to work there. They're treated well. They're paid like government workers. No one is getting rich working for the government, but they're happy with what they do in the city of Coconut Creek. That doesn't exist in the current state attorney's office. In walking and standing by that door, I saw 3 or 4 prosecutors that in my mind, I thought would have been lifers at the state attorney's office. They were good prosecutors. They were hard workers. They did their job, but they weren't treated right. They weren't treated right by administration. They weren't treated right fiscally. That's the root of it. If we can create a culture in the state attorney's office or any government agency, that should be the goal of the elected head of that agency, to create a culture, a happy, feel-good culture.
Time.
Where you like what you do, because if you like what you do, it's successful for everyone.
When I was an assistant state attorney in Dade County, I remember when my mother passed away. I had what I call a Jerry Springer homicide case, where both sides of a family were literally having a fist fight in a courtroom. And I walked down to my supervisor and I said to her, this is so much. And you know what was said to me? Teresa, we've got you. We've got your back. You are a family. We will always, always be here for you. And if this is what you need, we've got it. And that is what I'm going to bring to all of you. We're going to be a family.
Time.
I'm going to be your mother. Somebody comes after my baby. You know it's that.
can't afford to make our school loan payment and pay for our food. I mean, I've got people that decide whether or not they're gonna eat lunch or eat dinner. The main thing that we have to do though is treat prosecutors with respect, give them the ability to break down cases, encourage them, have an open door policy, not the door open, but people are afraid to come in. We really have to lower the caseload. And I remember when I first started as a prosecutor, my family was like, Mom, this just cannot be possible that you're working until 11, 12 o'clock at night. By me diverting as many people as possible, I'm gonna lower your caseload and I'm gonna be there right with you every day, and I've got your back. And I'm gonna pay you more money.
I think mass incarceration is a root of a lot of our retention issues. And here's what I mean by that. If you became a prosecutor like me, you did it because you believed in justice. You wanted to wear that white hat. You wanted to do good. You didn't want to be a factory worker. You didn't want to be lugging the little carts around with the boxes, with the hundreds of files, going into the courtroom, not knowing your cases because there's no possible way you possibly could with your case count, and putting out fires for a few hours in court, then going into the afternoon and trying to figure out what your day was going to be like for the rest of the day. That's a factory-like work environment that is caused because we have so many cases clogging up our system. I think when we treat prosecutors like civil rights lawyers, like professionals that can make decisions in the courtroom on the fly, that they know is right, that we keep a lot of people. Thank you.
The thing I missed the most by being in private practice and not being in a prosecutor's office, which I was for 12 years, was the camaraderie. The people that everybody there, we got your back. And I was lucky enough in Orlando, in the state attorney's office, as a statewide prosecutor, is that we were family. And I'm not going to be anybody's mother, I can tell you that. But if I'm lucky enough to get elected, I'm going to put everybody in the room and I'm going to say, hey, we're all in this together. And we're here to serve the public. And I'm here to look out to make sure that you have the best opportunity you can to do the very best you can. And that means paying you, that means taking care of you, that means not making you sit there and watch 5 o'clock, you can't go home before 5 o'clock, you got something to do, your work is done, go home. Flex time, 70% I understand of the prosecutors are women now, that's great. So maternity leave, flex time, take care of your kids, just get your job done. Put the bad people in jail and everything will be fine. Thank you very much.
So I'd like to recruit attorneys from around the country to come work with us. I think it's a pretty easy sell. I tell them, come down in South Florida, you're going to work near the beach, you're going to meet a lot of lawyers, you're going to get great experience, handle serious cases, meet judges, and then, after that, the world's your oyster. I'd like to have annual performance reviews where we sit down with the attorneys, explain to them what we ask of them, see what they're doing, and see what they want to do. Have a dialogue. Do you want to be here for 3 years to go somewhere else? That's great. I'll give you a letter of recommendation. I'll make some phone calls for you. You want to be a career prosecutor? Okay, what interests you? What areas do you want to go? Try to get them in those areas. I'd like to have senior attorneys work on cases with new attorneys. Have the younger attorneys get to go to trial on a hard case or a bigger case with a more seasoned trial attorney. And create a welcoming environment where we're all in it together and there's some camaraderie.
I think one of the other options that we have, and again, solving all these criminal justice issues is a community issue for all of us, is that partnerships can be very important. And for the office to have partnerships with our civil law firms to say, hey, if I have a 10-year prosecutor who's now a seasoned trial lawyer, which by the way is about what it takes, I'll pick up the phone and I'll call them for you and say, listen, this is someone you need to hire. We don't have to keep you forever. But 2 or 3 years is not enough for you to become a seasoned trial lawyer. I'm not going to stand up here and promise you money that we don't have, but I will stand up here and promise you that I will be arguing with our legislature for appropriations that we need in order to raise your salary. But no one can promise you that. I can promise you that I will have your back, that I will promote you based on your merit, and that I know that we will continue to have the atmosphere of a family unit supporting one another that I believe we have at this moment.
Okay, I guess you can figure out who's got this question. Broward County County tries fewer felony cases than Orlando and Miami-Dade, but has a lower conviction rate. In fact, ours is the lowest conviction rate after trial in the state of Florida, according to the most recent statistics from the Office of the State Courts Administrator. There is a perception that we aggressively overcharge crimes and fail to independently investigate any but the most serious charges before filing a case. Are we giving our prosecutors the tools to assess when they have a winning case and, more importantly, the discretion to resolve less serious cases so that they can focus their time and resources and attention on the most serious offenders? Do you believe that case filing is in need of reform as well, and how would you do so? And the last part of that thing is, whether or not police officers need to be personally interviewed in each case of courts filed, as they do in some other jurisdictions. That's Teresa Wood.
Someone can correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that the current statistics for our county court division show an 85% acquittal rating. 85% of the cases that go to trial in county court result in a not guilty verdict. I don't understand how that statistic is present in our office and there are not people in a panic mode at the Broward County State Attorney's Office. Quite frankly, since the day I arrived in this county, I have been screaming and jumping up and down about the fact that the only thing that stands between the prosecution of an innocent person and having their entire infrastructure being torn apart is a police report. Because the only thing that the Broward County State Attorney's Office does before they file a case against you is read a police report. I find that to be atrocious. I find that to be a violation of the law. And I think that that is a major, major problem that has resulted in a huge portion of the people who live in this county who would not be convicted felons if they lived somewhere else. Ladies and gentlemen, we need to have a comprehensive training program.
Time.
Our attorneys need to know how to try cases. We need to stop filing cases that shouldn't be filed. We need to stop trying cases that
Time.
shouldn't be tried, because that's what justice means. Thank you.
Ms. Williams is correct about the conviction rate, especially in the misdemeanor division. When I looked up the statistics, I was quite shocked that there's only a 17 to 21% conviction rate, and that's at least for the last 2 or 3 years. It's a bit better in felony, about 50% rate. Palm Beach County is is better than us. We obviously need to have training. Where this question probably comes from, if Bill doesn't mind me bringing it up, is the fact that he called me about 2 years ago prior to body cams, and he was aggressively representing one of his clients, and he said, cop is lying, bring him in, and ask him if he's lying. Actually, never been in that position before. And administration disagrees to bring in police officers and ask them if they're lying. I won't agree to bring in someone and ask if they're lying, but if I feel that there's a credible possibility that they might not be telling the truth, I am going to bring in those people, and I have held people accountable. And everyone here knows that when Anna Gardner was discussing a death penalty case with a prosecutor, I came forward and reported that. I have held police officers accountable since I've been in the office, and have reported more police officers than anyone else.
That charge was filed, and that charge was thrown out later when the cop got arrested. So.
and the problem is because of Brady, and also when I was in juvenile, there was no Brady ever dispersed in the office.
So as a defense lawyer, I see in the trenches, right, doing this every day, I know about the cases that actually go to trial. And essentially, generally, the 2 types of cases go to trial are folks that are facing huge sentences that are consequences that we haven't been able to negotiate for some reason, and innocent people. 97% of cases result in a plea bargain because folks are afraid to see that trial taxed. You're left with 3% of folks that are actually innocent. I think the way that we we increase our conviction rates is not, is yes, interviewing police officers, interviewing victims, doing a much better job on the front end, but also getting rid of a trial tax that forces folks to go to trial forces folks to take plea bargains that wouldn't otherwise do so. Thank you.
That's a tough question. I like to think that I'm personally responsible for the poor conviction rate of the state attorney's office. We have a lot of good criminal defense attorneys, and I think that might have something to do with it, but we do need better training. Okay, we do need to maybe tighten our charge decisions a little bit, particularly misdemeanor cases, but we do need to spend more time training our young folks who are right out of law school. I've taught at Nova now for about 20-some years, and I really enjoy that. And many of the young state attorneys and public defenders and some judges are my students. And I will take great pride in training, learning what I've learned with this gray hair over the last 40 years and trying to pass that on to the young state attorneys so that we can win more cases in court, be better prepared, and make better charge decisions as well.
So with respect to case filing, if I'm elected state attorney, case filing will be given new policies and procedures, and we'll have a whole new way of filing cases. I don't blame the case filers. I think right now they're given a set of rules that if A, B, and C line up, you got to file a case, and if not, you got to give us a written memorandum as to why you're not filing this charge or this case. And they're not sure what to do sometimes, and I think they say, you know what, err on filing it, and it'll come out in the wash. With respect to discretion, the ASAs that work in the state attorney's office, if I'm elected, will be given much more discretion than I have now. They're not going to have to check with a supervisor every time they have to resolve a case, or they have to drop a charge, or they got to go below guidelines, or they got to do something. That, oh, if it's HOQ, it's not in the middle, they got to come a little lower. They're going to be able to resolve cases more easily without having to go to a supervisor every single time, or the defense attorney having to go to the supervisor.
So when we talk about conviction rates, you necessarily need to incorporate our pleas, because those cases are investigated, filed, worked on, discovery is done. Specifically, we filed 34,000 misdemeanors last year. We also disposed of 35,600. Taking into consideration that of all those plea resolutions that we reached, only 65 cases went to jury trial. And guess what? They're the tough ones that we don't back away from. They're the DUI offender that has 3 priors, so he knows to refuse everything. We're not going to risk public safety and back away from a tough trial. Our conviction rate is 77.3% in county court. It is 87% in felony trial, and that is taking into consideration the disposition of all cases. With regard to case filing, you're not reading a piece of paper.
Time.
You're looking at police reports and summaries, reviewing body cam footage, and working hard. They will be given the discretion to not file a case that shouldn't be filed and not try a case that shouldn't be tried.
I see many of my former colleagues that sit in the back and current state attorneys who are in the office now, and I tell you, I'm not going to partake in the bashing of my brothers and sisters. But what I will say is, this question goes to the root of my fundamental issue with the criminal justice system. We put too much value in conviction rate. Traditionally, a good prosecutor was seen. If you had a high conviction rate, you were a great prosecutor. If you had a low conviction rate, terrible prosecutor, what's going on? That shouldn't be the standard how we judge our prosecutors, and if we want to institute real ground level criminal justice reform. We need to place a value on justice, fairness, and equality. I know it seems cliche, but it's the truth. It's what our foundation of our system should be. And if that is the foundation of our system, I guarantee we'll see these bad cases go away, and we'll see that justice is equitably administered throughout every phase of the prosecutorial process.
There's the concept I referenced when it was my time at the podium was there's a concept of Broward County criminal justice and let the jury decide. Everyone who's practiced in criminal law has heard that at some point. Let the jury decide. That exists. That's a real premise. That's the problem. It shouldn't be let the jury decide. It shouldn't be let the judge decide. It should be let the prosecutor decide. Let the prosecutor do what's right or what they believe is right, and that doesn't happen every day. The conviction rates bill I think you speak of are because of that philosophy. We have a philosophy of letting the jury decide. Take it to trial, don't break it down. But that's not the right philosophy. And that philosophy, when I win, will change. Case filing also needs to change. In other places in this state, the case filers are also integrally involved in the case. I've had conversations with a lot of people in this room right now about a case, saying, oh, I wish they didn't file this one, and they're left with the hot potato. That happens all the time in this county, and that needs to stop.
When I'm the state attorney of Broward County, I will never file a case that I can't prove beyond a reasonable doubt. That is what the criminal justice system requires. That is fairness. That is equity. And when cases are filed without evidence and they are simply tried to leave it up to the jury, that is not justice. Until you have sat down next to a person whose life is on the line when you believe them not to be guilty, you don't understand. You can't really understand what that is like. I know that many of you in this room get that. And part of what I do when I am the prosecutor in this county is make sure that everybody who works for the state attorney's office gets that too. They can understand the awesome power that is in your hands. And that we take responsibility and only charge those that we know to be guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. Thank you.
Actually, we're ready for the closing. Oh, he's got one more? Oh, I'm sorry.
We had planned one more question for one more candidate who's not here. So what I'll do is I'll ask the next question. Each person will have 45 seconds to give their response. Please hold to that. And before I ask the question, on the previous question, I wanted to make really clear that the conviction rate we were talking about was the trial conviction rate, the felony trial conviction rate, and this did not take into account any pleas that we reached, plea agreements that were reached. The last question, we had asked earlier about changing the office's culture after decades under the same leadership. A significant factor moving forward would be reorganization, which opens the opportunity to evaluate salaries of prosecutors. Now, the state attorney's office already attempted to deal with the issue of compression, but how are you going to continue to make sure that veteran lawyers and newer attorneys are compensated fairly in relation to each other? Can you find the money by reconsidering the amount of support staff you need to run the office, given the technological savvy of the new generation of lawyers? And can you propose any other ways to improve the salaries of staff attorneys? We'll go in order.
And again, that question, if I may, just because we know that you're all going to say, or the reality is that you're only given a certain amount of money from the legislature. That's not going to change. We know that. But there seems to be other ways that maybe you could shake the trees in not firing people, but just not replacing the same kind of volume that's with staff, et cetera, et cetera.
As a city commissioner, when I needed to raise money so I can pay a decent wage to employees, we had the ability to raise taxes. We don't have that ability as a prosecutor, and we only get $33 million a year from the state. It only funds about 11 months of any given payroll period. And how I'm going to resolve the issue is what I can keep on saying over and over again, which is a win-win situation for the defendants and for our staff, is we are going to put into diversion as many possible people. Each person pays about $100 for the cost of prosecution and diversion. That'll raise me $2 million, of which I'm going to use for services to our most needed population who really, really need service. If you've had someone who has substance abuse problems, try to find somewhere where you could afford to get them help. We'll have that money, and I'll have that money to pay our staff.
State Attorney's Office has 511 employees. Last year's fiscal budget was around $40.4 million. Most, though not all of that, is for employees. Look, there is a fixed budget, but we need to do a better job of lobbying at the legislature. I mean, state attorney's offices from around the state go up. My office goes up and lobbies every year for higher salaries, for more general money for our budget. We can also go to the Broward County Commission. There's money here at the county level for special projects within the state attorney's office. We need a state attorney who's aggressive in going out and getting more money, making sure that every single person that works in the office is compensated the way that they should be.
Joe's right about a lot of that. You know, we're a Democratic county and a Republican state and a Republican world. And we do have to do more in going up in Tallahassee and tell those folks up there, you know, we here in Broward, we matter too, and we deserve our fair share than what you've given those folks over in Tampa or some of the other Republican parts of the state. And in Miami, their county commission kicks in a lot of money to the state attorney. We don't do that here. And I'm going to blame Mike Sachs a little bit for that. He needs to get up, you know, whoever the state attorney needs to get over there and be a little bit more aggressive with those folks and say, hey, you know, you guys kicking in all this money for the sheriff and everything else. Yes, this is a state constitutional office, but you need to help us so that we can have young prosecutors and good prosecutors and have the resources and the tools we need to keep you safe. Because at the end of the day, that's the most important job of the state attorney, and that is to keep you safe.
Time.
So I started at the state attorney's office. The starting salary was $40,000, but because I had 8 years of experience as a lawyer and experience as a prosecutor, I was offered a salary of $41,000. Thankfully, I lived with my wife, and she earns a living, and so we were able to, you know, to make it along on our own. But you know, to keep quality people, you have to have more money. And as Bill mentioned, people will retire or leave. That some of them won't be replaced for technological reasons or others. And then many of the people that are leaving with very high salaries. I think the max that they're allowed to be paid. And so I'll take that money and spread that out over several prosecutors and not replace that attorney with someone making the same exorbitant salary.
I'll tell you what I have done to free up money in the state attorney's office. The first thing was, as the chief of the domestic violence unit, we acquired and managed grant funds. Those grant funds came in and paid for 2 case filers to be doing review and filing of those cases, freeing up salary and giving us additional positions that we didn't have to pay out of pocket. The second thing I've done is in leading the office and creating a virtually paperless county court, we've eliminated positions like docket clerks. We didn't fire those folks, we gave them other opportunities, but there's no reason to have 4 women employed to just take files out of the wall and then put them back after court when we are now virtually paperless in county court. Constant evaluation of our resources and where they're being utilized needs to be done and must be done. The additional thing that we need to do is expand and take a look at our forfeiture funds that are available to us for funding.
Well, we're at my favorite topic right now. You know, I'm an old country boy, and my dad would always say to me and say, boy, I can make $1 out of a penny. And I also have experience where I'm an in-house counsel for a multi-million-dollar telecommunications company. I tend to deal with transactions that are 2 times, sometimes 3 times the budget of the state attorney's office. And so, like I alluded to earlier, first day, we're going to have to do an audit, and we're going to have to do a full audit of the books and figure out how an office can be allocated $40 million in a budget year. And we all know that 95% of that budget goes to salaries, but our prosecutors aren't adequately being paid. We need to get to the bottom of that day one, and then we need to properly allocate those resources to ensure that our prosecutors and support staff are being adequately taken care of. And we have too many prosecutors making those tough decisions on if I'm going to eat tonight or put gas in my car and make it to work the next day, and that just shouldn't have to be.
It's really easy to have the high school adage of when I'm running for class president to say, I'm going to give everyone pizza and candy. It's really easy to say that. I'm going to give everyone a bunch more money. It's really easy, but you know what? It's not. Listen, I sit over in Coconut Creek. We have 5 days of budget hearings going over $150 million budget, how to spend every single dollar of taxpayer money. It's transparent. You can get a book on it. They don't have that at the state attorney's office. The reality is that the Palm Beach County State Attorney's Office in the 15th Judicial Circuit, Dave Ehrenberg has dwarfed in grant funding the Broward State Attorney's Office 20-1. 20-1, so what does that mean? He goes to Tallahassee, he goes to his county, he goes to the federal government, and he lobbies for money to give back to his people. The question you all have, who's the one up here that can do that as well as administrate the office?
Time.
And I believe the answer is me.
I believe that grant money is available through criminal justice reform principles throughout this nation. It's not being utilized at all in our courthouse. This is an amazing resource for us to be able to take prosecutors, put them into specialized positions, and give them the type of money that they deserve. Quite frankly, I think that we have a lot of dead weight sitting in the office. We have people who are collecting six-figure salaries who never step foot into a courtroom. That needs to be changed. All those positions need to be reevaluated. We need to pay the people who are in the courtroom fighting the fight what they deserve every single day. And those who are dead weight need to be weeded out, reassigned, and put into different positions. At the end of the day, there are forfeiture positions that we can be putting into place to utilize money and funding, and that's what we need in order to be able to make our system better.
Thank you. As we wrap up, thank you everybody. We are going to now go down the line. We're going to keep it at a hard 2 minutes, but please, your closing arguments.
First, I'd like to thank all three of you for putting on this debate tonight and the leading women voters in FIU. Regardless of who wins up here, I believe our justice system is going to be a lot more just and fair because the community is really watching us. Let me just tell you, I am so proud to be a prosecutor. It is all I've ever dreamed of. When I was a little kid and I was brought up in foster care, which I still get emotional about, I promised that one day when I grew up, I was going to make things just and fair for people. This is the greatest job I have ever had, and I spend every day when I look at every case trying to do what's just and fair. I've been doing criminal justice reform the whole time I've been in this office. Every prosecutor that is out here that I've worked with, I am so very proud, and staff, so very proud of you, especially the people here tonight that are in the sexual battery unit. The job that you guys do every single day should be commended. You have no idea what these prosecutors in homicide and what sex bat have to go through every single day, what they have to listen to and take it and carry it home with them. To the defense bar, my diversion program for private lawyers is really going to hurt your pocketbook, but it's really going to help the justice reform system, and it's going to help the caseload for public defenders so that you can actually concentrate on the job at hand and the real serious charges where you really could pay attention to make sure that that person doesn't go to prison, or you can make the best possible resolution for a case. We need to work together, the public defender's office and the state attorney's office. There's been so much contention for years between the two people. We have to work together. We have to work together to find a common resolution for both the defendants and for the victims. I am asking for your vote. I promise you, I will give every second of my day to make you safe, to take care of the prosecutors in this room, and to make you proud. My name is Sheila Liu. I'm asking for your vote in November because I'm running as an independent.
So again, I know this room is filled with state attorneys, and if you're like me, you didn't become a state attorney because you wanted to put people in jail. You became a state attorney because you want a safe, more just community for your family and for everybody else's family. We've been taught for decades that the way to do that is through prosecution and incarceration. But after decades of mass incarceration, 2.3 million of our neighbors behind bars, whole generations of black men and brown men behind bars being oppressed by this criminal legal system, I think we need to do something completely different. So here's what I believe. I believe that prosecution itself is often causes an extraordinary amount of harm and should only be reserved for when it's absolutely needed. I believe that folks shouldn't have to choose between putting gas in their car and paying their court fees, and families shouldn't have to choose between paying for bail or paying for rent. I believe that putting handcuffs on a kid is extraordinarily traumatic. I believe that putting someone in prison is an act of violence against that person and should
only be viewed as a necessary evil in the smallest of circumstances. Look, 72% of Floridians believe we need substantive, meaningful criminal justice reform. Republicans, Democrats, Independents. 72% of Floridians don't believe in anything, but they believe in that. But that change can't be small. If we're going to reverse decades of mass incarceration, we can't just become the state attorney and announce with a press conference that mass incarceration is over. It is going to take big, huge structural change. It will not be easy, but nothing that has ever been done big was easy. And I'm hoping and I'm asking you to come on this journey with me and vote Joe Kimmock in August of 2020.
My name is Jim Lewis. You might call me old school, but I won't be legalizing crack anytime soon, I can tell you that. Everybody's up here wants to run to the left, right? But there's a place for keeping the community safe. And there's a time and place when people do such bad things and hurt our community and push drugs to kids and all the craziness that goes out of here. Sometimes jail is the answer. It is. Now, I've been around long enough to know that it's not the only answer, that we've got to do more to help those that are really drug addicted, those that are mentally ill, those that steal simply because they can't get a good job. But if you're out here robbing people with a gun, you're out here trafficking in kids for sex, you're shooting people, you're breaking into people's houses, yeah, Jim Lewis is going to put your ass in jail. You can count on it. But for everything else, yeah, we got to do better. We've got to do a lot better. This change is coming. There's going to be a new state attorney, and folks, change is coming. It's your question, what kind of change do you want? And I think you need somebody that's got some experience, somebody that's got some white hair, somebody who's tried a bunch of cases, somebody that knows most of the cops and the prosecutors and the judges and the public defenders here in this community. One of the first things I'll do is, if I get elected to be your state attorney, I'm going to sit down with these police chiefs and I'm going to say, folks, there's a new day coming, all right? The days of cops lying and putting people in jail that shouldn't be in jail, them days are over. We're not going to prosecute people for marijuana anymore in Broward County in small amounts. Those days are over. We're not going to do a bunch of residue cases and gum up everything. But folks, make no mistake about it. The most important job here is to keep everybody safe and make sure everybody's treated with dignity. Make sure that victims, when somebody is hurt and breaks into their house, that they can at least go to that state attorney and that somebody stand up and fight for them and say, no, that's not going to happen here. You will go to jail. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, Justin McCormack. I believe the job of the state attorney is to seek justice and protect the community. I believe that I have the knowledge, the wisdom, the judgment, and the experience to carry out that job. We heard a lot of good ideas tonight, and I agree with many of them here. And the difference between a lot of things we heard and what I do is that I actually do the work, and I've been doing it since I was a prosecutor in 2013. I prosecute police brutality. I look police officers in the eye, I look to the jury, and I say, he's guilty, he did it. It's not an easy thing to do. It's not something that I take much pleasure in, but I do it because it needs to be done. I also prosecute violent crime. I prosecute shooting cases, aggravated battery cases, and I send people to prison for years. I don't enjoy sending them to prison, but it's something that has to be done sometimes. I've also refused to prosecute small amounts of marijuana. I've gotten into arguments with my supervisor. This guy got out of work at 2 o'clock in the morning, he wants to smoke a joint, he's got no criminal history. I'm not going to charge him for that. I believe in second chances. I fought defense attorneys, judges, and sometimes my own office to do what I believe is right and stand up for my convictions. I've been giving people breaks whenever I can. I believe that each of us is more than the worst thing we've ever done. When it comes to mental health and drug addiction, we need to treat those people with more compassion and understanding. We need to expand our mental health diversion program. I believe there's a path to prison and there's a path to redemption. And if I can help someone get on that path to redemption, I'd like to help them do that. I work alongside some excellent prosecutors They've given their life to this work. It's important to them. And I'd like the opportunity to make the systematic changes that are necessary to lead the State Attorney's Office to a new dawn of justice.
I'd like to begin by thanking all the current and former prosecutors that are in the room. The fact that you're here means that you're interested and that you care about the office and the way that it's going to go, and you should be commended for that. I originally came to South Florida thinking I was going to pursue a career in law enforcement. I actually went through the academy and graduated, and I was working as a felony probation officer here, watching what the prosecutors did in court when I decided that was my passion, to become a prosecutor. I went to law school for that reason. A minute after graduation, I was sworn in as an assistant state attorney, and I've been at this job for 24 years. I care deeply about this community. Ladies and gentlemen, the way to correct and make improvements to our system is as a community. We must form community partnerships with our healthcare providers for the purposes of enlisting their assistance in mental health issues, in the trauma surgeons and nurses that see the product of what we are dealing with. We need to forge community relationships and partnerships with our teachers. When there is a child who witnesses a homicide at 2 o'clock in the morning and is missing and absent from school the next day, there should be communication about that. One entity cannot correct the entire system. We must work as a community together. We can also forge partnerships with our local businesses. There are opportunities. Business owners are interested in care. They care about public safety. There are opportunities to forge partnerships there that will create mentorships, job training, things that we can do that don't cost money, as long as we're all working together. And I believe that that can be done. I will tell you, the main reason that I am still a prosecutor is my experience in having the privilege to represent and advocate on behalf of the victims of crime in this community. The chance to walk them through what is a long and frustrating system is a reward that you can get like no other. It cannot be compared to monetary compensation.
Thank you, time.
I've done it for 24 years, and as your state attorney, I will continue to do so.
First of all, thank you everyone for being here. It's been a really long night. My name's Harold Pryor, and I'm ready to be your next state attorney. A little bit about me. I'm a fifth-generation Floridian. I'm a country boy. I'm a proud husband. I'm a proud father, and also I'm a proud attorney. You know, I've experienced the criminal justice system from so many different vantage points. From the vantage point of having family members and close personal friends within an 8-year span murdered and watching those killers go free. But also from the vantage point of having family members who were addicted to drugs or who had mental health issues, and rather than them get the help that they need, they were placed into the criminal justice system, their lives were demonized and they were spiraled downward. But also, I've experienced the criminal justice system from the vantage point of a prosecutor who tried misdemeanor cases all the way to attempted murders. And also from the vantage point of a father who has a 2-year-old black son, and I worry every day, how am I going to raise my son in this dangerous world? How am I going to protect him? I'm running because I want to institute real groundbreaking criminal justice reform with all these reforms, but I don't want to compromise the safety of our communities. It doesn't matter what walk of life you walk in, where you're from, what side of the tracks you are. You all want to be safe. And that will be my paramount goal. We have an opportunity. We have an opportunity to not prosecute low-level drug offenses. We have an opportunity to not demonize and criminalize people with drug addictions and mental health issues. We also have an opportunity to vigorously prosecute those who would target women, children, and members of the LGBT community. But we also have an opportunity to adequately pay our state attorneys and support staff because it's the right thing to do. We have an opportunity to elevate and cultivate our women lawyers, because that is the right thing to do. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm running for state attorney because I truly believe that we can institute this ground level criminal justice reform, and I need your help. My name is Harold Pryor, and visit www.haroldpryor.com and learn how you can be involved, and I need to earn your vote on August 18th. Let's make history.
If you asked me a year ago if you thought I would be here, the answer would be no. I've been passionate about criminal justice for 15 years. I've had opportunities to get out of the system, can't leave it. It's in my blood. Being in that courthouse every day is my passion. The people that are still in that building every day, the people that have been there in the past know me and have seen me there. It is my passion to be there, and my life has kept me there. So when this job, after 44 years, came open, I remember I looked at my wife and I told her I was thinking about running. And I kind of was hemming and hawing about it. And then she said something to me, and she said something profound. She goes, "Are you going to regret not doing it?" I had to think about that for a minute. I got a 3-year-old and a 7-year-old little girl. And after really processing, the answer was yes. I am going to regret not doing it. Because this is a moment that for how I've lived for 15 years, I can institute and change a system that I have seen broken. And a system that I guarantee we can keep our community safer. A system, an office that has never had a seat at a county-wide table with other sheriffs and municipal police chiefs and county commissioners to actually work together as a community to fix crime. Because being a state attorney isn't just being a hammer and looking for nails. It's having a toolbox to fix the issues. Ladies and gentlemen, I have the experience. In Coconut Creek, we have one of the safest cities in Florida. I oversee police officers and a budget. I have the tools, not just legally, but administratively, and with our government relationships, to make this office great, to make Broward better, to make Broward safer. I would ask you all support on August 18th, 2020, Joshua Rydell for Broward County State Attorney.
Earlier, we all had a little chuckle about me being your mother. But quite frankly, when I sit back and I think about all of the different things that come to the table in being the state attorney, I have to say that, frankly, I think it's mostly the skills that I used as a mother that I bring to the table. In many ways, every single person in this county is the child of the state attorney. The state attorney is going to have some children that are doing great, and those children need to be kept safe. But then the state attorney also has those other children. Those children that have problems. Those children that have issues. Those children that need guidance, need to be put on the right path. And as a good mother, you know that if you don't discipline your child appropriately, you're not doing them any favors. And if you discipline them too much, causing a significant amount of damage. What it takes is a person with intelligence, common sense, discretion, and experience to understand the very delicate balance that we need to put into place to make sure that what we're doing is what's beneficial for all of us in this community. As your mother in the state attorney's office, if you are an assistant state attorney, all of you have seen me fight for my clients in the courtroom, and you will be the person that I will be fighting for. And every single one of you knows that if somebody comes down on you and I am your boss, I will be standing right behind you, right next to you at the podium, and I will always, always have your back. It's going to take, what we need is substantial change. It's going to take a strong person to make that happen. It's going to take a person who is firm in their convictions, who is not afraid to stand up to the good old boys. I am the candidate who is going to stop the backroom deals in this county. I am the candidate that's going to stop the public corruption that has been there for decades. And I am the candidate that's ready to bring criminal justice reform to Broward. Remember, Teresa Elizabeth Williams, the best for Broward's at the bottom of the top.
Listen, I wanted to thank all you guys for showing up. It took a lot of courage because there's a lot of inside baseball questions for an educated audience, and of course the video is going to be watched by lawyers and stuff. So thank you all for showing up. It's really super important and early as well. So thank you for that. We hope the rest of you guys will hang around because the public defender candidates are going to be here at 8:20 sharp.